So what you just heard was a clip from FX's hit series Pose, and I just want to talk with my special guest, LGBTQ activist and national organizer, Miss Hope Giselle. So I just want to talk about FX's hit series Pose because that was my first introduction to anything ever involving trans women outside of seeing Paris is Burning after I watched Pose, because I was like, ooh, I love Pose. However, I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on, well, for those of you who don't know, Pose is a series that chronicles the triumphs and struggles of the 1980s, of trans women's struggles in the 1980s ballroom scene. And I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts regarding that whole ballroom scene?
Honestly, when it comes to ballroom, now, when we talk about ballroom, I'm not a fan of ballroom. I just don't, I don't particularly like what I think that ballroom stands for, and I'm one of those people that is willing to admit, that I've never been to a ball a day in my life. However, I've seen them online. I hear the way that folks who are in the culture talk to and about one another, and it's just not my cup of tea. It's not something. It's not something that I would be personally interested in taking part of. I think that, especially as far as trans women are concerned, ballroom culture helps to just add to the continued stigmas around trans women being overly feminine and, putting themselves in risky situations to get surgeries that may or may not be necessary, dependent on what that person actually wants versus what they feel like they need because of the pressures of ballroom culture. And the ballroom itself is not what I would like to think of as a healthy, space for trans women. Mm-hmm. However, the show, I think, and the visibility that it brought to the world and to cis folks who wouldn't have had, the privilege or the honor of talking to trans folks up close and personal, I'm really excited about that. A lot of people who actually do know me and follow me on social media know that I'm friends with, damn near the entire cast. Mm-hmm. And so I'm super excited about what they do on a weekly basis in the midsummer. I'm super excited about the show, and I'm super excited about Pose, but I do have qualms. I have issues with some of the writing, and I have issue with some of the colorism, and I have issue with the fact that the story isn't necessarily original. I love the idea that they're telling, the Paris is Burning stories, in case you don't know that that's what's happening. Right. Pose is retelling a lot of the stories that Paris is Burning kind of glazed over, because Paris is Burning was a documentary, but it wasn't like a documentary that could fit like all of those stories, because they were each like their own sort of deal. Right. And so I really applaud Pose for doing that, but I do wish that the story was original. I do wish that outside of the characters, at least, I wish that the story was like something that came from the mind of a new age girl. And I'm really excited to see where they go with season 3 because of that, because they seem to be time jumping. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see Pose in the 2000s. So that would be interesting. To kind of see how they tackle that and how the characters will tackle that. But overall, I think that the show is worth it. It's definitely necessary. There are just tweaks, but I think that we all have criticisms about things no matter how good they are. So that's my Pose TED Talk.
So when you mentioned that some of the issues that you have with the show, I'm thinking of some of the issues that I have also with the show, because I feel like the standard of beauty that is set for like trans women, I don't know, in Paris is Burning, they kind of addressed that the standard was to be like a white woman, and I was like, I find that to be very problematic, because as a black person, I'm not trying to be like white people. We are the most unique and most beautiful people in the world. So the idea of your nose and this and everything has to be like a white woman, I just found that to be such self-hate as for black people in general, because the show is really, tackles a lot about black trans women. And I just feel like they really kind of just scoped over the blackness of it, and just more of like, it's we're trying to be like white women type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing I wanted to talk about was, how do you feel about this? I don't know. I feel like there's just an over sexualization of trans and gay and lesbian people. I feel like the only scenes that we really see, they're just sporadic sexual encounters. Like, we don't really see a relationship, a healthy relationship on TV, no matter if it's How to Get Away with Murder, a little bit of Empire in there, or Pose. So what do you feel like is necessary? Because I know you majored in theater. Am I correct? Which I'm actually a theater major as well. So I was like, oh snap. But how do you feel as a people or as artists we can combat these stigmas surrounding gay, trans, and lesbian and people?
Well, I would say that, it's about getting ourselves into the writer's chair, but we're doing that, right? Like Janet Mock is writing, and so are these other people. Like, all of these other folks are helping to write the stories, but they're writing the stories based off of white folks' comfort and based off of cis comfort, which was my issue with Moonlight. I felt like Moonlight was a very lackluster film, and I felt like it was because it was written from the gaze of writing for cis black male approval about, what would be okay for cis black men to sit in the movie theater and watch. And mind you, they still didn't go watch it, but I really hate when we feel like we have to dull down our love affairs or our relationships or the way in which we love, because cis people have to because cis people have to be able to digest it a certain way. And I really think that getting truth tellers in the seats, right? Our relationships are more than toxic. Our relationships are more than, a trick and a trans woman, or a down low person and a gay guy, or some woman who has a wife and a lesbian, a husband and a lesbian woman. I think that our relationships are so multifaceted, and they're not always these toxic things. They're basic ass relationships, and you get in them, and then something happens, and you realize that sometimes you're not meant for each other, and we move on just like everybody else.
Right.
But I think that there's this inherent need to show cis people that we go through struggle, right? Because showing them that we go through struggle gets us, empathy. And I'm open to empathy train. I don't think that I should have to get you to be empathetic of me and my life on a television show for you to treat me right. And we're just at this point in television where I think we've done that, and now we need to move on to just telling the basic stories so that folks can understand that there's no need. I really want to get to the point where there's no need to write an article about Pose anymore, because it is regular shit. You know what I'm saying? I want to get to the point where there's no need to write an article about the L word anymore, because it's regular shit. You know what I'm saying? And until we get to that point, I think that the solution is going to be continuing to tell them basic nigga ass stories so that they leave us alone, and stop treating us like we're zoo exhibits. That's what I really think that the help is going to be, is just telling stories that sound like cis stories, except with LGBT folks, because our stories are the same. As far as anything else that I would want to see, I think I want to see more big girls, though. I do want to see more of a character variety. I'm sick of the skinny stick figure. Everybody could be, a model character on Pose. The community, and especially if you know ballroom community, a lot of the girls who are running the balls are the big girls with the loud voices that are carrying, these mics and really turning the balls out. It's not like, Pray Tell. And, it's not like people that look like Angel and MJ. It's folks that are like, these big girls are going into the ball and running shit. And I think that I would love to see more variety in that way. More of a size differentiation that doesn't involve just being an extra. Like, I want to see a big girl on the show or a big guy on the show who actually has a substantial character. Because if we're here to represent the community in all its glory, then let's represent the community in all its glory, and actually put folks on the map who don't have this traditional sense of Eurocentric beauty.
Now, another thing I've noticed with Pose is the ballroom scene in particular does not just cover trans women, it also covers trans men, which I feel like they've never addressed on this show, or maybe I'm just a little too behind in the current season, but I feel like they've never addressed any men's issue. Maybe that's just the focus of the show.
As it pertains to trans men, especially on Pose, they use Leif Ashley and a couple of other people, I believe, but those trans men are very male passing. And from what I understand, because I do have a bunch of friends that are in the ballroom scene, is that most trans men walk male categories because a lot of them pass. And so there's no differentiation in the ballroom for trans men. You either pass and you walk male categories, or you don't pass and you still walk male categories, because there just hasn't been a need in that way, at least not coming from men who compete. Or I guess specifically trans men who compete. There hasn't been a need or, an outcry from them in the ballroom community to, create like a specific trans man category. They do exist every now and then, but most trans men don't care. And I think it's the same way in real life. I think that trans men, and when we say it, it's like they agree, but they just don't like it. Trans men just don't go through the same amount of scrutiny and turmoil as, trans women do. And a lot of that is because most of them pass because testosterone is a hell of a drug. But breaking down testosterone, however, in some cases is not easy. So you have a lot of trans women who go through things because a lot of trans women are visibly trans, whereas trans men, if they don't pass, they're just assumed to be lesbians. And then in that case, lesbian women don't go through the same thing as gay men go through. Right. And these are things that, we're all privy to. It's not, news. Every now and then you do have a lesbian woman or a trans man that's attacked, but it is a very rare occasion that somebody is going to attack a trans man or a lesbian woman. And so I think that the show wants to focus on the folks that are being harmed and killed on a regular basis versus focusing on a more minute community of people who are not being targeted in the same way and at the same level. So I think I would love like a trans male character on the show. I think I would like that, maybe. I also think that they're doing really good with telling the story as is and kind of introducing us to small things here and there. I think that the one thing that I do like is that they introduce us to like very nuanced things as we move through the season. So hopefully in this season they do kind of touch on, trans men and maybe give us an actual trans male character to follow. But I think I'm cool.
So one of the things I noticed you were